Howdy, everyone, and welcome. I am Kevin Blanco, Senior Developer Advocate here at Appsmith, and I'm ready to kick things off. And I couldn't be happier because we have an amazing featured guest today who is ready to bring valuable knowledge to all of us. As usual, I love to see the global impact and reach of our community, so please say hello in the chat and let us know where are you tuning in today. I'm located in the right now super rainy Costa Rica here in the tropical. We've had like 3 days of non-stopping rain over the last few days, and I haven't been able to use my grill, which is something that it's a bummer because I enjoy cooking and enjoying using my grill. But hey, that's the price of living in tropical paradise, I guess. Anyway, shout out in the chat. Where are you tuning is in? And because I'm usually in love with those comments. Like I see people from Australia, from Africa, from South America, from Europe. It's amazing the global impact of our community. Now, let's talk about something that for me is a big elephant in the room. Everybody's talking about it. You guess what it is? I guess you do. It's agents. Everyone is just talking about it. It's absolutely dominating the AI discussion right now. Like if you go to LinkedIn right now, it's flooded with the AI agents posts and comments. Every conference that I've been over the last 6 months is just agents sessions everywhere and AI. And even VCs are throwing money at anything that has the agent word in the pitch deck. But there is a true reality around this also. Like, yet, now we're talking here about AI agents, but on the other hand, there are organizations struggling with actually implementing agents in production. And I get it. I get the reason why, because it is really easy to build like a proof of concept. It's easy. You can go to any AI tool, any AI agent platform over there. You will be able to create a demo in 2, 3 steps, but then you hit a wall when it comes to real world deployment, real world use cases. And one of the things that is really complicated about this is memory or context for these agents, and also integration with existing systems for agents to be actually helpful. So, in order to find solutions to those problems, I'm going to bring my partner in crime. You know him, Joseph. We're going to be talking about this long and extended. Hey, Joseph, how's it going?
Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
I'm doing great, buddy. How's everything going there in Tallahassee?
It's good, but like you said there, it's rain, like just this time of year. It's been every single day for like 2 weeks. So yeah, it's hot and humid and can't really enjoy the weather much. But other than that, it's going nice.
Awesome. So, Joseph, we were together in Miami a few weeks ago at the Shift conference, and you were telling me about something called SEC failings, or fallings. Like, I don't know the particular word. And honestly, since I'm not from the US, that was a bit unknown to me. But then I did my research and I learned that those documents are financial statements, right? Like periodic
Yeah.
reports and other formal documents that public companies or broker dealers and insiders are required to submit to the US Security and Exchange Commission. So can you tell me a little bit about that? You were telling me about them and that you can access them via an API, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's a free API for it, and you can look up different companies and see all of the different reports that are filed. Some of those reports are periodic, they're expected to be out every single quarter. So the fact that it's published isn't a surprise, but what's in there, you could be looking for how did they meet their earnings target and things like that for the
Mhm.
quarter. And then there are the ones that happen out of cycle that aren't periodic, but it's like when a major change has happened to the company. And those are ones that have to be triggered, I think 3 or 5 days or something after some substantial event that changes like the financial situation of the company or the management or whatever. So there's the SEC API. The SEC Security Exchange Commission is where
Mhm.
all of these documents get filed, and that's the official repository for it. It's like filing your taxes with the IRS. And then there's a bunch of third-party services that pull from that same data and provide other APIs and maybe different search options or whatever. So today we're going to look at the official source, the
Okay.
SEC's API. And like I said, there are other ones out there. This one, honestly, I kind of struggled to integrate with it with a few of the endpoints and the formats that they use a little out of date. It's not like up to date with standard REST API practices.
Mhm.
Um, but it is a legacy. It's a wrapper around a legacy platform.
Oh,
I actually looked into it a little after getting kind of frustrated with using their API, and I realized that it's not supposed to be the back end for your project, for your web app or whatever, right? It's
right.
a public repository, it's an archive. The fact that it even has an API is a bonus. And
Yeah.
if you really want like a high reliability, scaling, whatever backend for it, there's those other paid services for it. Um, anyway, that's what we're integrating with. I wanted to connect it to an agent to help explain those filings because if you're not in finance, those things are a mystery. It's just a bunch of numbers and boxes, and what's box number 14, and
Yeah.
you number positive or negative. Which way is the money going? They're hard to understand, and so I've created an agent that we can use to help decode those. And then I wanted to give it some memory so that it's not just providing the document with your prompt and giving it some extra context, but then the next time you go to ask, that context is gone, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I wanted to set it up with memory so that as you're scanning through and finding different documents to do research about a company, you might find something interesting and want to save that for long term. And then the next time you're looking at a similar report, the next 8K or 10K report, you might want to ask, well, how does this compare to the last month or last quarter or whatever? So to do that, we used Weaviate for the storage. And we have a special guest today from Weaviate here. So I think we'll go ahead and bring them on now. I'll introduce
Yeah.
Daniel from Weaviate.
Yeah. Let's bring Daniel on the table. Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Joseph. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining us. Where are you based right now?
I'm in the steaming hot Paris. Unlike the two of you, it's extremely hot. We cannot get rid of the sun in Paris today, or this week, or this month, really, lately. But I'll enjoy it while it's here. Yeah, I'm based in Paris. And like was lovely said about me, I'm a developer experience engineer at Weaviate. So happy
It's
to share some light there.
it's a pleasure to have you here because yeah, like Joseph was saying, I was trying to digest the information. And although the API exists, like for mortal like us or like me who don't understand about finance, it's really hard to digest. So I think it's the perfect scenario for an AI agent that not only can read those but explain them in plain English and remember everything for future analysis. And that's exactly what I think we're going to be showcasing today. But before that happens, I wanted to, let Daniel to explain to us a little bit about what is Weaviate and what are some of the finance use cases that you guys have, and maybe we can learn a little bit about how tech is helping finance with AI and vector applied.
So that is a great question. Weaviate is a vector database that helps people build any sort of AI info any sort of AI apps. Wait, let's start that again. I sort of lost my flow.
It's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. Weaviate is a vector database, which a lot of people use when building AI native applications. So, any sort of applications you can think of, ranging from a simple RAG, pipeline, or interface, chatbot, all the way to an agentic application, Weaviate can help you add context and store your data for building AI applications. Um, I feel like you also really hit the nail on the head here with your use case, your financial data use case. One of our biggest customers, or rather larger customers in the financial services industry, is a company called Morningstar. And essentially, what they do is they provide financial insight, not just for SEC filings for companies that are trading on the US stock market, but for a wide range of securities. And so essentially, they have this pipeline where they ingest a bunch of information, be it the filings that we've talked about, a lot of other market data, news, etc. And then they create this index that is searchable, and then you can run predictions and also connect this to an agent and other sort of AI applications, as well as RAG pipelines.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Daniel, for that explanation. I think it's great that we have you here. It's the perfect scenario to talk about the use case that we have in place. what Joseph's been building, and we have been talking about RAG and vector search over the last few months a lot, and I think this is perfect scenario for what we're just going to be explaining. So, Joseph, I think this is the perfect time to stop talking and start showing, right?
All right, let's check it out.
All right, let me bring your screen on the table. Let me make ourselves small, and it's all yours. We can see your screen now.
All right. And maybe move, can we put the images of us there maybe on the other side so you can see the chat?
Oh, yeah, totally. Let's do it over there.
There we go. Okay, cool. So this is a combination of an agent that has some tools or function calling that it can do on its own. It's a combination of that and some regular APIs in JavaScript that is just more of a traditional app without the AI. And I've set it up this way because when you use the SEC API, you have to search for things by the CIK number, and most people don't memorize those. They'll know the company name offhand, and people in finance, they probably know the tickers of the stocks that they're interested in. But then there's this CIK number, and it's anywhere from like 6 or 7 digits to 10. And you have to know that number to use the next API and actually look up their filings. And so I wanted a way to drill down and look through different companies, pick a company, and then list all of their reports, their filings here, and then from there hand it off to the agent. So this is more of a traditional API search. You're just looking at response data, and if I want to search through here for, like, say, Verizon, I didn't know what the ticker was, so I can search for the company. And this will show me their recent filings. So we'll select this 8K here. And I've got a few different default actions set up for the agent. So you don't have to type anything. They're just suggestions. So you can see it's explain Verizon form 8K. And so whatever company I'm on and the document. And then if I select this form 4, you see the suggestion change there. So I'm going to ask it to explain this 8K for Verizon. And so you'll see it run a function in the background to get this document, because the API that's being displayed right here, this table of data, it's just metadata. It's just a date and a type of form and a link to it, but it's not the actual document. So it runs that in the background to get the full text of the document. And then it'll provide this summary. So it's going to tell you about the effect of it on the company. Is this good or bad? Which way is the money flowing? Is it out of character for this company or whatever? And so that's the first function of this agent, is to just explain the document for you. You can also pull up the doc, so I can view it right here. And it gives you a link to all of these documents and their filings. But again, most people don't know box number, what all these numbers are. So it really helps to have that agent explain it.
Yeah, totally.
The other cool thing with Appsmith agents is we have this sidebar where you can deploy the agent and then pull it up in other applications. So here I've got the exact same agent with the same list of all the different companies and filings, and then the chat below it. And you can see it has that last answer from the chat in the other tab. So you can create these agents that work across multiple platforms, embed it and pull it up in the sidebar here in any website, and then carry that context. It's continuous context from one website to the next as you pull up your agent. And so now I can continue to chat with it here while I'm looking at the doc, or I can use it in the full screen of the app here where I'm exploring lots of different docs. Okay, so that's the first function of the agent, is to be able to explain a document. I've also added a long-term memory to this, because right now I am just providing a document as context with my prompt. And if I select this one and then tell it to explain this 4K, right, it's going to send that data with the prompt, and it'll know about it just long enough to answer my question. And then it's going to forget. And when I go select a different company, and it's not the active one, it's not going to be able to answer a question on that, right?
Right.
And so what I have added, what I did to give it long-term memory, is I can ask it to save this to Weaviate. And it's going to, I wonder if it'll get it right. I misspelled that. So it's getting the document. and then it'll save it back to Weaviate for the long-term memory. And so this allows it to answer questions on that later down the road after. Okay, it did save it. It looks like it's green there, and so it has saved that document. And now when I'm not selected to Verizon or to whatever company, I'll select something different here and search Weaviate for Verizon. And so it has these documents as you're going, as you use this app repeatedly and analyze different filings, you find the ones that you think are interesting and tell it to save it, right? Then you're going to get a collection of these. So I've done a few on Verizon, and now I can go back through and look at, the last three 8Ks had this in the summary, but then they changed positions. They changing strategy or whatever it is you want to keep an eye out for. So that's the second function, is being able to save things for long-term memory and then retrieve that. And it doesn't have to be the one that you're selected or that you just looked up. And then the last thing I added, there's a API for this service called FinHub. It's a news website that's specific to financial. So let's search Verizon News, and it's an API that is aggregating lots of different news sources, so it's not just going to give you stuff from one news outlet, but it's one API, one source to find a bunch of those. And then I have it set to only look at the last 30 days. You could put that in as part of the prompt if you wanted to, get more specific. But it's basically giving you access to a bunch of different info, in one agent that can reference the news, the filings, and the history of other filings that you've searched to help you do that research, so that you're not copying and pasting back and forth from the SEC. Like, I could copy all this and paste it into ChatGPT and ask it to explain it, and then maybe I paste that into some notes that I'm going to maintain long term to search. And you could do all that manually, but this just puts it all in one agent, so all of those tools are tied together.
Yeah, and I can think of that at scale. Like you said, yeah, you could do that for maybe a few, like maybe 5 or 10. But think about that chat history, and trying to find one of those in your chat GPT history is going to be a pain. Uh, Joseph, I had a question. Like, how much time did it took you to build this, integrating with Weaviate, and not only Weaviate, but also, like you mentioned, you can bring news, so that means there's another data source over there. So how much time ballpark do you think it took you to build this?
The agent stuff, it's really quick and easy to throw together in Appsmith, like half an hour to add the data sources. The SEC API, though, it's not the most user friendly. The data format's a little weird, that the structure it returns data in. And I could have just passed that data to the AI in that format and let it try to untangle it and put it into an array or and make it look, formatted properly. I could have just given the AI the data in that format and hope for the best every time. Then it'd be trying to solve that same thing every prompt, right?
Yeah.
So I spent several hours, probably better part of a day, on just JavaScript, transforming the data and converting the format that the SEC API returns into an array of objects to display in a table like this. Or the column headers, there's, instead of it returning an array of objects, it returns an object with a property for each column and then an array of values that go with it. And it's just weird formats that I either never seen before or that are just not common in REST APIs. So yeah, long story short, the agent part, easy to set up. Transforming the SEC API data to provide it as context, that's where I spent most of a day.
Yeah, but that's something you cannot avoid, even though you want to build something similar, or trying to build something with in the standard way, like having a development team. I can see maybe 2 developers, 3 developers working on this, like maybe 2 weeks of development plus ongoing maintenance. Like now,
Mhm.
a financial analysis can spend, like, let's say maybe 6 hours manually reviewing these filings manually. And now they get the same insights in under 2 minutes, which just built in just a few hours. And yes, processing the the SEC API is something that you cannot. Uh, it's a pain that you cannot remove, but after you've done that, it's all clear to use Appsmith and Weaviate to do this, right?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
competitive advantage over there. Just measured in hours. I mean, I wouldn't say weeks. We'd say hours for sure.
right. It's gonna save you a ton of time in the research phase, and then on the back end after you've done the research and you're ready to take some action. Like you now that you've got all that info in there, and let's say you've got some extra to invest, or you're deciding if you want to sell, a certain position that you have, you can do all of the searching and make that decision a lot quicker now. Um, and the way that I've got the memory set up, it's, let's say multiple people logged in to use this agent, it's going to save back to the same central store, right? So you could break up the work and have people searching lots of different companies and create this like super agent that has info on all these different companies that you're interested in, and everybody use it as the same source to ask the questions. Or you could set it up to where you use a property in the vector store, like what class that you want to save them as, or metadata filter, and make it like a per person agent. So with Appsmith agents, we can set up different controls and permissions with our role-based access control, and either do it per person or per department with groups. You could have like different teams have their own data set, and the next agent would have a different set of memory. So that can be broke down and configured however you want. But the way it's currently set up, it would be shared.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I wanted to ask Daniel. Like, I want to know a little bit more about what's the difference between this memory and rack, because I see that the value, what you just mentioned, Joseph, it's actually true. Like, you could have, let's say, for example, imagine your compliance team, your legal team, and your investment analysis, like all of them building on the same intelligent knowledge base instead of starting from scratch each time. And as they continue to add more content and more value, it continue to be more intelligent. That's a lot of business value over there for sure. And even for compliance risk, like, I understand that missing critical information in SEC filings can cost like companies millions in regulatory fines and even missed opportunities. So it's not only a value of time for the analysis, but also the amount of money that these companies can avoid spending just because of the intelligence that you're providing. But I do, there's probably questions from people right now about like, what is the difference between a standard rack? What is Weaviate in this particular demo doing and maintaining the intelligence? So explain us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Also, to expand on what Joseph was talking about, there's also the possibility of having multiple tenants. So if you use the Appsmith agents feature that has different roles and groups, if you have different teams or different users, each of those users could be provisioned their own tenant that stores their own specific data and interactions, and maybe preferences for, I don't know, specific stocks. If you want to make this some sort of application where you already have like like a portfolio of specific companies that you track filings for, all of that is extremely doable, and you find a lot of value from that. Going to your question on the difference between RAG and sort of this approach, I like to think of them as the same. I think very early on in this AI wave, we we were doing what I like to call naive RAG. And for me, naive RAG is essentially you have one data source and you fetch data from that data source, and then you pass that to context. You pass that as context rather to a large language model. Whereas today, this has evolved into a more agentic solution, like we've looked at today, where we have multiple data sources, SEC filings, or something like Finsta or a vector database. And depending on what the agent finds relevant, we look for the right data in the right place. So if we already have data stored in Weaviate, that includes something that we already generated from a previous user interaction, like we just saw Joseph do, the agent would decide to fetch that data from the Weaviate store instead of making a call to an API. Maybe this is a new company that we haven't got filings for and we're looking for new information. So we'd make that call to to that API, and we don't necessarily have to specifically say that this is what we need to do. We take advantage of the fact that these large language models can reason over complex tasks, and then pick the best tool that we give it to run and help service our request. And I find it really powerful. It's extremely interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is. From multiple angles, it is. And it was just super brief what Joseph showed us, but it had so much value in it that I cannot. I mean, I'm tempting myself to ask Joseph to show us a little bit behind the scenes, under the hood. Like, I don't want to get super technical here because I know there might be people looking at this from a business value perspective and they might not understand the technicalities, but just a little overview on how things are connected between each other, Joseph.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, the SEC API part of this definitely added some complexity to transform the data. The agent part's really simple, but there is a decent amount of JavaScript and some APIs involved to get that context into the agent. So I can show that real quick. We'll look at the editor here and get out of preview mode here. So we have this special type of query in Appsmith for agents. That's called a chat query, and it's a combination of all the stuff you would have with a agent or an assistant, like say an OpenAI, where you have a system prompt and you've got some functions that it can call, some knowledge sources, what type of re-ranker and chunking, the model that it's using, so you've got all those type of controls, and it's really easy to just give it access to an API and let it run it. The issue I ran into with this one is that the SEC API, it just has a lot of really weird little things about it in the way that it returns data. And so, like, the first one that I ran into is normally if you want to display data in a table, you use an array of objects. This API returns the list of tickers as an object. There's no array. It's an object where each property is a number, but it's a string. So it's like a sequential string. A number is a string, and then object 0 is that, object 1 is this one. And so there's two issues here. One, it's not an array of objects to easily display in a table. And two, you got to look up this CIK number in order to use the next API. And so you've got to be able to display that and drill down and pick one so you can pass that as context to the next API. And so once you've got the ticker that you want to use, then maybe you want to get some submission info about that company. And so you can see in here, if I get the agent part out of the way, I'm taking the prefix CIK and adding it onto the selected row of the table. Although I've got a parameter here, I can optionally pass in a parameter. So I can use this function and pass in the value at runtime. Or I can, if there is no passed in parameter, it'll just default to that selected row. But in either case, I got to pad it with zeros. So here you can see there's 3 extra zeros at the beginning, but the value coming back from the API when you use get tickers, this one doesn't put the zeros at the beginning. So this is just the beginning. There are so many little weird things about this API, but you don't get this in the right format. So you got to transform the set of data. And then you get down to the individual object level, that type of data, right? And this one doesn't have the zeros, but you do need the zeros over here as dynamic. You have to like pad it with X number of zeros based on the length, So sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4. There's so much more, man. It just keeps getting weirder. Some of them return XML. There's let's see if this one will run from this context. Some of these only run from the agent. Okay, this is another weird format. So you've got facts about a company, and then it's just a nested object, and somewhere in here, here's a field, and then it's got an array of values that go with it. And then there'll be like another field, here's this column name, and then like here's all these values that go with it. So it's not laid out like a normal table at all. Every endpoint, every step of the way, there was some data I had to transform. And so I just have a bunch of wrapper functions here. This one I have to pass in a parameter, and I didn't have one in there. But yeah, all these are different functions that transform the data before it gets to the agent so that it's in a normal API JSON array like it would expect. That's not an issue with most APIs. Like you can connect to so many different knowledge sources with our agents and connect different APIs, but this one was just really tricky to get that SEC one in the right context and passed into the agent.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. But that's the complexity of the API, completely outside of what Appsmith and Weaviate can provide. And it's still extremely quickly compared to a standard development process. And also, like the regulatory portion is key, which is something that I was just reading about that the executives, like, this is the reason why executives should be paying attention to this technology right here, because the average M&A, which is like mergers and acquisitions due diligence process, takes around 60 to 90 days. Now, that's normally the time that it takes with teams manually analyzing hundreds of these documents right here. Now, this agent could compress that timeline to weeks while still providing deep, very deep insights. So when acquisition opportunities move at market speed, this is not something that is just useful. Like it's actually strategically critical. So I do see a lot of value in this use case, and it's just a very quick use case. We just talk like there are multiple use cases that
Oh yeah.
can deviate or generate branches out of this particular use case that we're talking about right here.
Yeah, this one, it doesn't do a lot of action on its own. It's a lot of data retrieval. So like you can ask it a question and then you'll see some APIs run in the background, you know. But it's just retrieving data. So it's tool use, but it's not like taking an action in another platform, right? And then saving data back to Weaviate. That one actually is changing data in another platform. But that's the extent of this agent is what it's capable of doing. If you wanted, you could connect an API to, Robinhood or Webull or whatever, like trading platform. And maybe once you drill down and you find one that you're interested in, you could tell it to, to actually purchase stock in it or, to sell or whatever. Like if you wanted to connect the agent and give it that, those tools, it could definitely do it. This one, I've made it more of a research assistant, and then it has that action to extend its memory. But it's not taking actions in another platform to trade stocks. That would be definitely a cool thing to add to it if you, as the person using it, really understand it. You're really looking into these companies. That's not something I would do for fun to test it out or as a demo. But if you're really into it and you understand that and the risk, and that's the company you want to invest in, it would totally speed things up.
Yeah, definitely. So we've been talking about Appsmith for quite a while, but I wanna hear from Daniel a little bit more about Weaviate. Like, how can people get started? That's probably one of the questions that people might have right now in the chat, or if they're scared to ask in the chat, that's probably a question they have. So, can you tell us a little bit about where they can get started, how they can start learning about Weaviate?
Yeah, absolutely. My always I always ask people to think about their why. So why you're trying to get started with Weaviate. You might be building something in the financial services industry, like we've been talking about today. And so what exactly do you want to build? You might be building outside, maybe medical, maybe construction. There's a lot of different industries that could use AI infrastructure for any sort of AI integrations. And so, are you looking for more of a search solution? Do you want to find something that could make your search much more performant and effective? Are you looking to implement RAG into your application? Are you looking to build an agent or sort of like an AI native application? So, answers to those questions will decide sort of like the best place to start. Most of the answers, the best place to start would be the Weaviate Academy. Incredible resource for people building in Python, JavaScript, TypeScript. If you're looking for anything like that, the Weaviate Academy would be an incredible place to look for beginner resources up to sort of intermediate and even like scaling up to, production and, also becoming more performant in production. So we've got like a lot of different content that I'd really recommend looking at. I'd also recommend our webinars. So every month, if you're looking for like a nice handheld, intimate setting where you can get into Weaviate. I'd recommend attending one of our online workshops. We run these at least twice a month for various languages. And yeah, you might get to see my face again. I give them sometimes. So that would be my recommendation. Our academy, our workshops, and of course our documentation is also a really good place to have a look.
Perfect. Yeah, actually, I'm putting in the screen for everyone who's watching right now who probably have their phone in their desk. You can just use the QR code on the screen and it will take you directly to the quick starter guide from the VBA docs. And also, I have a link here that takes you directly to the vector similarity search, which is, I know, that's something that people might be interested that was related to what we just did right now. So again, if you have your phone, you can scan that QR code. And there's one document in our community portal that might be also interesting to you, which is Joseph wrote a great article about building a rack pipeline with Weaviate and also Cohere. So that's also another great resource. Well, he deep dive not only about the integration portion, but also a little bit about the JavaScript portion when processing all of that information and connecting all of those platforms. So I think that's definitely a great resource to showcase. Also, while I would like to invite everyone to sign up, sign up to the webinars that Weaviate has, also the webinars that we have in appsmith.com/events, and subscribe to YouTube channel. Like we have a lot of resources being published over there very often where we can talk about also function calling, which is something that Joseph mentioned, that not only pulling data and being able to retrieve data that is valuable, but also taking action upon that data. That's one of the things that you can do with function calling from Appsmith, which is extremely simple to set up with all that features. So yeah, take a look at all of those resources. And before we close up things, Joseph, Daniel, is there anything else that you would like to bring about the use case that we talk, or any use case that you can think that might extend for the one that we just explained?
Yeah, I know we just gave everyone a ton of resources and links, but just a couple more. So when I first started building on this and I needed some help, I found that Weaviate has a Slack group. There's a public Slack channel that you can join for support. I jumped on there and I got an answer in like minutes. Somebody from the Weaviate team jumped in and was real responsive and answered multiple questions and unblocked me. So excellent support over there with Weaviate using Slack, and then we have one through Discord. So both of those have links on our home pages. Just at the bottom, there's a link for the communities, and we're using Discord for ours, but we both have an active support community there. It's a mix of the team, support and the community, and I found it really helpful when I used it. It was instantly I had somebody helping out.
Right? Yeah, those are great resources.
Incredible
Well,
resources.
yeah. Um, everything that we just talk is waiting for you. Everything that we just talk is waiting for you. So check the description and the chat right now because we're sending a lot of links over there as well. Definitely go to our community portal, community.appsmith.com, create your free account, start learning about Appsmith and all of the RAG integrations and content that we have there, including Weaviate. You will see a lot of categories and a lot of tags that are related to those two platforms. So it's definitely the place to go. Check the Weaviate Academy, like Daniel just mentioned, to master databases. And lastly, start building your hybrid RAG agents at appsmith.com/AI. You can literally connect more than 30 data sources natively to your RAG pipeline in seconds. And you don't have to write any piece of code. You just integrate them with your accesses, whether that's any of the tool we mentioned or even further. Actually, a few weeks ago, we announced more than 15 new data sources that are completely native to our platform, without writing a single line of code with function calling integrated. So again, don't forget to subscribe to Appsmith and Weaviate, because when two platforms like the ones that we both have join together like this, you don't want to miss what happens next. So once again, thank you so much, Daniel. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much, Joseph. Any closing words from your end?
Well, I'm excited to see what everyone builds with these two incredible tools. Do share them if you do build something. We'd love to see them and highlight them.
Yeah, exactly. Joseph, what about you?
Same. Yeah, we would love to see what people build. Happy to share it. Hopefully there'll be, a few from both communities, and we're just excited to see what people can do using Weaviate for the for the back end for RAG, and then Appsmith as the front end. And there's so many use cases when you combine those two, and then all of the data sources and the APIs that we can connect to. So those data sources are the the source of the info that you want to perform retrieval on, but it needs to be in a vector store first. And so we can bring all of those together and be the front end for it. And we'd love to see what people do with it.
Perfect. Well, there you got, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Joseph. And I guess we'll see you all on the next one. Please do not hesitate to reach out on all of our communities, on the Slack, on the Discord, on the community portal. Find us everywhere, and we'll be more than happy to connect to all of you. See you in the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Right.